a little after 10 o'clock, call the meeting to order.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All ayes. Minutes have been approved. The agendas, any additions or deletions?
Have nothing to add.
I'll move to approve the proposed agenda.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. All ayes. The agenda's been approved.
Public input.
Public input.
Bill?
Bill? You already have it.
Input.
You already-
You're gonna have a hearing today on precinct?
Tonight.
No, not today. It was in the
The,
minutes.
for the precincts, yes, we're talking
Yeah.
about contracting.
Right, yeah.
And that's tonight at
That's tonight.
7 o'clock.
Okay, I guess, can I ask questions then when that comes up, or you want me to ask them about it now?
Either
Either
one.
one's fine.
Okay, well, I'll ask them. Was there a committee formed then to do the precinct thing?
Jim?
Not the precinct, we haven't done anything about the precinct. This is just a public hearing on a proposal. The committee was formed to
Redistrict?
redistrict the supervisor districts.
Okay,
And
that's
that was-
what this hearing is.
The one this morning is for the supervisor districts.
Right.
The one tonight is for the
Right.
precincts.
Okay, so you did have a committee
Yeah,
formed.
it was comprised of the chairs from both central committees and the elections deputy in the auditor's office.
I had a question. We're having a hearing about that today, but July 26 minutes stated you approved it.
Actually,
That's how.
yeah,
No.
we did, the board considered the recommendation from the committee, the districting committee. And what today is just a hearing on adopting that ordinance for that recommendation.
Okay, so the approval of the minutes, what was that again?
That was, they approved the recommendation.
The approval
The recommendation, now you're having a hearing.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought, having a hearing and then, I didn't quite.
You thought we were DOT.
So did the committee have any minutes that are,
No, actually, they looked at the population. There's guidelines set up by the Secretary of State's office. And we looked at a couple of other options, and this was the most uniform. No, there were no minutes. It was just a recommendation of those three people.
Did you have a problem with what was recommended as far as the changing around?
It didn't change a whole lot.
I mean, yeah, the net effect was pretty small.
I lost I had a few townships in Sac Township.
Wasn't
I'm not townships, I had a few sections in Sac. I lost those, and I gained before I had part of Clinton, and then now I have all of Clinton. That's about the only.
it's nice if you can include the whole township, because it gets confusing.
Yeah.
Either that or an old school district that, they're used to going one way or another. Just,
We did put Eden Township back
yeah,
together.
I see that. Yeah.
And
And
the
then
only one that's divided now is
It's
Coon
Coon
Valley.
Valley, and now I've got some of Coon Valley in District 2 and gave up part of Eden. So it's,
That was always confusing. So I never knew where to go to Nemaha to vote or Shaler. Some locals are at Shaler sometimes, like school districts. And it always had been the full township before. And then, it was just something you get used to.
and that would have been in 1990 that was last changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jack got Eden, and I
got
got
Eden.
all of his Clinton. I would say that's the biggest change.
And then my change is I now have part of Coon Valley.
Yeah. There's 40 to 60 people per rural township.
So really, we put together 2 and separated 1 is really the net change.
And we kept, well within the margin that prescribed by law that you have as far as keeping it. It's pretty easy.
They were all very near 3,500.
So, I guess, I don't have a problem with this. I'll leave the rest of the questions I got for tonight, I guess, and I can decide that. I guess the only thing, for those of us that don't get the sex, I'm sorry, but we didn't know much about it. We just happened to read it on the website, and then called Betty Bailey, and she didn't know nothing about it, so I sicked her on it, but that's the only way we found out about it up there. Appreciate a little more communication.
It wasn't in the Shaler, anything about it?
Well, after we called Betty, and then she called down here.
Okay, because I'd heard that there was an article in there.
Yeah, after.
A couple of 2 times.
Yeah, after. Well, I'm not sure what I got in there, if we had
Okay.
Okay.
just a little communication. That's all I got.
What is the public hearing?
10:15.
2:30.
10:30.
Supervisor's office, for Keck speaking. Yeah. We have a public hearing on our supervisor district boundary discussions, and then we're open till 10:30, and then we're open after 10:30. So whatever fits your schedule best. Maybe shoot for after 10:30. So, okay. No, it shouldn't. We've actually had some discussion about it already. The changes are very small. Sure, that'd be fine. Thank you. Ron will be here at 10:04 here shortly after our public hearing.
Did you guys take any public input about re-precincting? Or
Just had a couple phone calls. I've actually received several from the west side of the county. Folks seem to understand that why we need to contract. That there's seems to be quite a lot of discussion about the fact that the west district is clear from north to south, where the others are not. But folks have been, we're happy to have the discussion, and we're going to have it again tonight at 7.
do you think that might lead you, if that's the general consensus from the people in the West, to consider having 4 precincts?
I think everything's on the table. I mean, this is a very difficult one to really know what's right. I'm really struggling with it, I guess. Not sure what to do, to be honest.
We're not going to take any action.
Well,
We don't have to.
Yeah.
So what it stipulates, basically population is how you have to split the district, right? So the criteria.
And it's
Try to get it as
close to 3,500 as we could get.
Within 2 or 3 of, 5 is the biggest variation.
The population variance has to be within 2% or something like that.
You mean for the supervisor?
Yeah.
Yeah, the district.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, you look that map over, and, you know, with the consideration of what you had suggested about splitting townships, and this one put two back together and separated one.
Yeah.
So we're not able to stay whole, but we did get close.
Yeah. Yeah. But by law, you can't have one.
That's correct.
Well, there's three different options for supervisor. They can be elected at large, and then you don't have districts.
But with the current system that we
Right.
have,
Yeah.
With the current system, they have to be balanced population-wise.
Right.
yeah, I guess yeah.
And by law, we're required to have a minimum of 3 voter precincts because of the population. By law, we can have no fewer than 3 precincts. Not related to supervisor district.
That again is based on population. You can't have a voting precinct with a population of more than 3,500 people. And as it works out, our supervisor districts are balanced at just under 3,500.
Yeah.
So that's
That's
kind of where
good.
the discussion started.
Yeah. So in the state of Iowa, nobody has a precinct over that.
I was just reading through the code again this morning, and it's I mean, there's a lot of caveats. It's not real direct as to what you do, but that's what that's reinforced my opinion in that you would need to have a minimum of 3 with your population differences, and we got, I mean, this proposal is as close as I could see you could get it without even, I mean, with the concept of trying to keep the townships intact.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you're right with when you divide them, people from one time to the next don't know where they're supposed to go.
Looks like it worked out that way.
Where do you want to go next?
We can talk about claims or RC&D or whatever you want.
Why don't you do the RC&D thing first, Jack? I'm not through looking through this.
Okay, we have the RC&D M&M divide agreement, Missouri, Mississippi Resource Conservation and Development. As you know, the federal funding was cut out completely. We have no funding whatsoever for it. And they're all but broke right now. Audubon County is withdrawing. Crawford County is talking about it. Otherwise, one of these times we're going to be assessed. They're going to want money to keep the thing operating. And it probably can't be kept operating even under the name of RC&D because that's part of the NRCS. And we are no longer part of the within RCS. So
Was that the federal funding that was
Yeah.
eliminated?
so we have no funding whatsoever for it. We lost our building, the office and everything, and we have a free office at the bank in Glidden right now. And I don't think we've received an awful lot of help from the M&M divide the last few years. So I would recommend that we probably withdraw from it.
That's been one of your committees the whole time.
Right,
you've
that's been
been.
my committee for the last 11 years.
I agree. I really don't. I don't have any interest in assessing folks, and I think you're accurate in thinking that will come. And we just really haven't seen much activity, I would support suspending.
I agree with Rick. Yeah, that's one of the things I think the federal government got too big with spending too much money, and this is a bit. They had some really good programs, but we have to prioritize our spending. And I think we can get along pretty well without it. There's some things that it would be very painful or difficult to discontinue, but I think this is one we're going to have to let go.
I think they did help them do some grant writing, but Region 12 also helps in grant writing. And you can have, so I think any grant that we are looking into can probably be handled by Region 12.
Are you prepared to take action today?
I'm prepared to take action.
I will make the motion that we suspend our arrangement with RC&D M&M Development.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. All ayes. Then we will withdraw from the M&M tonight. And we need to send a letter to them
Okay.
stating that.
I got a letter last week from Region 12 Council of Governments, and this is a continuation of a program that we've been involved with for several years. It's a grant application in the name of Council of Governments Housing to the Iowa Housing Trust Fund, and the funds, if they're awarded, will be used for assortment of housing needs throughout the counties of Audubon, Carroll, Crawford, Greene, Guthrie, and Sac. They're asking for a $3,000 contribution to match the, a total match amount would be $21,967, and I'm trying to find the grant application amount is $219,671.
The leveraging is always quite high.
Yeah. It says here that, please note that the matching funds requested could be budgeted through the next 2 years. Funds contributed by your county will only be spent in your county.
Do you, I know we've had this conversation every year, and did we include this full amount?
No, this always comes after the fact, and it's always this time of year when we get, if you read that, she apologizes for such short notice or late notice, and they never know if this grant's going to be available, so they don't include it in their budget conversations.
And I think
We've been doing this ever since I've
And they usually spend quite a bit of money here in Sac County on low-income housing.
our leverage is quite
I
high.
think we get our share. Well, I'll make a motion that we go forward with this, our share of the grant application, and fund it for $3,000.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All ayes, motion carried.
This application for approval of construction through a drainage system came in from Frontier Communication, and it goes through DD4 along Highway 20. Excuse me, the right-of-way of the new Highway 20.
DD4.
I'm not sure where that is, must be up in...
Has Keel and Pyre looked at it and recommended it?
Yes.
Frontier?
Yes. No, it'd be on along Highway 20,
The
Jack.
new Highway 20, so it's gotta be up in Cedar and Jackson. Hold on, on my escort, it might be quicker.
Well, it's along, it mentions Perkins Avenue.
So that must be to the west, that's not,
Oh, there it is. Right by, right there. There's 4.
okay.
Then it goes through,
I knew it had to be to the west because it's not over here. Okay.
it looks like it's through the Dr. Carroll Buckley Trust property.
Watch my sign. I'll move to approve the application for construction across Drainage District 4 right here.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. All ayes. Motion carried.
So. Rid of activity and supply.
Just one place to sign.
Claims.
Place.
I'll make a motion to approve the claims.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Opposed, nay. All ayes. Claims have been approved. Anything else? No, we'll recess until 10:30.
I have a formal one or just grab it.
Accommodations.
This is a hearing on the ordinance approving the new supervisor district boundaries. The committee met and made the recommendation to include the cities of Shaler, Early, and Odebolt, along with Eureka, Eden, Cook, Weir Valley, Richland, and Wheeler Townships in Supervisor District 1. Supervisor District 2 would be comprised of the towns of Nemaha, Sac City, and Lytton. Also included would be Douglas, Delaware, Cedar, Jackson, part of Coon Valley, except sections 24, 25, 26, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, and 36 of Coon Valley. And Supervisor District 3 then would be made up of Lakeview, Wall Lake, and Auburn, and Coon Valley Township, except those aforementioned sections, along with Wall Lake, Levy, Viola, Wall Lake, and Clinton Townships. Did I miss any?
Sac,
And Sac Township, excuse me. So, that was the recommendation. That was the approval that the board tentatively gave when that was submitted. And by law, we're required to have a public hearing on that proposal, and then to be developed into an ordinance for the next 10 years until the next census comes out.
We've had quite a little discussion about trying to include whole townships previous to the hearing, and I think this proposal will actually put two back together, although it divided Coon Valley. I really think it's a very viable proposal and gets us to the population divisions that we need. I support the district boundary proposal.
I've not received any written or oral comments in support of or objections to that particular proposal.
Bill, do you have anything on?
Not as far as your district, I'd support that.
There,
Makes sense to me.
and without, I mean, it pretty much, it's not perfect, but it gets two of the townships back together, and although we do divide Coon Valley,
it was divided before. So, yeah, I think it's a very common sense, practical approach. I picked up Clinton, and presently I'm on the board. I'm right next to Clinton, so. In the House, the legislature, Sac County's all in,
it's whole.
it's all in Gary Worthing's.
Yeah.
Where before, Lakeview and Auburn were in Rod Roberts.
And that was one of the reasons why we had to divide the other two, is because all of that area had to remain in one supervisor district and so on and so forth.
I think it's a good plan.
No problem. I hate to lose Clinton Township because it's so close to a town or utility vote, but
Yeah. I'll make a motion, I guess, to close the public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed. Do we want to go ahead with?
We need the motion for the ordinance.
Yeah.
I will make the motion to approve the proposal of the redistricting boundaries for the supervisor districts in the form of an ordinance.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All ayes. The districts have been approved.
Ron should be here shortly.
And we'll recess again until Ron appears.
How's the,
Miles of road that
We're
we lost.
recessed, waiting for
Yeah.
you. Waiting for me? Waiting for you. So we'll call the meeting back to order. What do you decided?
I have a meeting today.
They're really organized.
Judy asked last week whether there's anything the secondary roads had for the board, and I said, I don't have anything to act on, so I don't know where. Maybe they wanted a longer weekend, I don't know. Charlie Cruz, placing aggregate on road shoulders along D15 between M50 and Highway 110. Laying gravel roads, spraying trees within the right of way in Levy and Wall Lake Townships. Installing driveways in Cook and Eureka Township. Placing riprap in Raccoon River adjacent to the 350th Street in Section 2 of Sac Township. That's right next to that bridge. Installing several tile through roadway on Lee Avenue north of 230th Street. Project update, everything we've got is complete except for the patching, and we haven't heard from Cedar Falls when they plan to start. Highway 20 update, Lee Avenue, closed that today to install a tile line, actually 2 tile lines and a culvert across there. It should be back open tonight. Needham M50, if weather cooperates, they should be able to get that surface with rock and have it open by Friday. And as soon as they get Needham open, then they'll close Lee for several months while they build up the road and get Lee Avenue built up. Yankee, I guess I forgot to change the name to them. It's still closed, but I'm not sure how much longer it'll be closed. Quincy's still closed. Last part of that next thing, contractor is placing rock, base rock between Durant and N28 this morning. They'll close N28 for a few hours, possibly late this afternoon when they place the base rock on the north lane. And then again tomorrow morning when they place rock on the south lane, because then they'll be going back east.
So they are gonna do, they have it scraped and formed to the west, 500
Yeah,
feet.
500 feet or something, yeah. But
So are they gonna rock that too?
Yeah, they'll rock on out there and then they'll turn around and rock the other lanes. South lane's coming back.
Any word on the cement plant at all?
No, in fact, he was just in the office this morning dropping off some haul road stuff. I asked him if he heard any more. He said no, he wasn't sure, so.
Who's that you're referring to?
Bob from Cedar Valley Corporation. I think it's just, as soon as they get down to the plant wherever it's at now, I think they're gonna move the one over here that's over by Fort Dodge now, doing that 169 project right there on the west side of Fort Dodge. But that could change depending on how much rain they get there and how fast they get done. And they've got other plants, and so they might move something else in if they get done someplace else.
It looks like they're sitting there waiting for it. I mean, they were outside this morning and I was up there.
Yeah. I don't know how much rock the DOT's gonna let them put down before they stop to that. I would guess they might not let them get more than, maybe a total of 3/4 mile both lanes. We can go back over to Durant, they might shut them down for a while until they make sure the concrete plant's gonna get here this fall. Because 2 years ago, they did that over in Webster County. They got a couple miles of rock down on the base, and then that was the fall that it rained and rained and rained, and they never did get the concrete plant there, and they never got any concrete placed that fall. So they don't like to see that rock out ahead of time because they compact it and trim it, and then if they let it sit there through the freeze thaw, it actually loosens it back up. So they just soon not see it out there over the winter. So
What have they said anything about the bridge over the Coon River?
No. And I asked the DOT inspector this morning when Goverson was gonna get back out here on the N14 bridge. And he says they keep telling them they're coming, but they don't seem, because I did call the DOT inspector because that N14, that rough underneath that bridge again. And they need to get somebody up here and take care of it, or if it gets bad enough, Mike always goes out and takes some care of it if it gets too bad, so.
Send them a bill then?
Well, we should be sending Giverson and Smith a bill, yeah.
Because I guess I was trying to think, I was over it this week, but the first time I said something about it, it was terrible. And it's not quite as bad.
Yeah, I heard it was getting pretty bad again. The vacation here in Quincy, with the 27th, would that work,
Oh,
of September?
Have you visited with anybody in the area as far as
No, I haven't
anybody?
yet. No. Well, the only one I talked to, talked a little bit to Chris Bass on conservation, because they've got that railroad piece up through there, and we're trying to figure out whether there was any kind of agreement, because that whole railroad splits like Sanders' piece into two different sections, and whether they had an agreement to cross. He said there's nothing written, but they do let them cross in there, so. And we're trying to do a little research as far as, the old railroad, who owned what up there by that corner, so we got an idea who's got access and who doesn't, what was the road, so. But if I get that notice put together this week and get it to the paper, then the earliest we could have it would be the 27th. I gotta get the resolution, though, for the board to pass, setting the time and date too, so. But if we,
well, you can do that now. Draw up the resolution later if you get their approval.
yeah, I could get the resolution approved next Tuesday, and then it,
That still gives you a lot of days that you need.
yeah,
Yeah,
It's not like 20 days or something.
Yeah.
between 20 and 10.
but if we could temporarily set it for the 27th, at what time you want to shoot for?
Whatever works for you, 11.
11 o'clock? That should work. And if we get the research done, so that I'll be able to get the resolution to you next week, then I'd probably also try to just get it in the paper.
You'd have to get it to the paper
This
Thursday to
weekend.
get it
Yeah,
in there on the 15th.
Yeah. If it looks like that's not gonna happen, then I'll probably look at backing it off a week to the October, whatever it is.
So you don't want anything in today's minutes?
No, I'll get the resolution. I mean,
I know we talked about it, and how much were you talking about abandoning?
I don't know if I brought that up or not. It'd be about a half mile, a little bit longer. We can go to the quarter corner to the south, but then north with that diagonal piece that goes along the railroad and access into those properties up there. We might have to leave it open to where it hits that diagonal, but I'll probably publish all the way to then we'll try to vacate all the way to the north, the line of that section, and then we'll see what comes out of the hearing. And then once we get our rest of our office work done as far as trying to see what the property descriptions say up there. Right now,
there's a little piece north of the railroad track, I think, that doesn't seem to be included in either party's deed, so
Oh, really?
I'm not sure whether, maybe it could be all railroad track, we're trying to track that down a little bit and see.
So then what happens if that's the case?
Well, we would, it might influence us whether we have to leave that open for access to the other part. I just assume not leave that diagonal piece up there because all it be is a place for people to drive into and mess around. They don't need to be there. So, but I'll shoot for that, and if that doesn't work, I'll try to have the resolution either way next week, but if I don't get it prepared for the paper, then I'll probably back it off to that October, what would it be, 4th.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you, Ron. Have anything else?
Well, I got
Do you have anything?
I would move to adjourn. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned, well, are we adjourned or recessed? Tonight.
let's just recess and if we can.
I'll withdraw my motion. Okay, I'll move to recess till this evening at 7 o'clock.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are recessing until 7 o'clock, and that'll be in the courtroom, here at the courthouse.
Did we say courtroom or the communication center? I thought we were, oh, it is. Dennis Henry just called me this morning.
Well, 7 o'clock, we'll call the meeting back to order. I'd like to welcome everybody. Glad to see you. I wish there were a few more tonight. But I would like to request if you have a cell phone, turn it off. It doesn't interrupt somebody who's talking. There will be no decision, we're just here to listen tonight and try to figure out what we're going to do. We have people that would like to address.
Why don't you guys tell us what your plans are? What the process has been?
I'll start. We've had some discussion after every 10-year census, we have to go through the redistricting type situation. We had a meeting today to approve our redistricting for supervisors districts. We had a couple small changes. Had a group of 3, Jim, is that right, that met to discuss the possibilities of a so-called commission. We didn't need to make many changes to make the supervisor districts equal. One of the rules is that there is not to be over 3,500 head count in a precinct, is that correct? And so today we accepted the proposal of the intent is to try and keep the townships together in the district. We were able to put 2 back together, and we were not able to put the 3rd in its entirety. Eden made the change to the West District, Clinton to the Southwest District, and then there was a change of Coon Valley added to District 2. With that part of it, we also have the ability to have a discussion about consolidating voting precincts. And we currently have 9. We could go down to as far as 3. if that is chosen. We've gathered tonight, we've also had a public section in our supervisor meetings to ask people for citizen input to speak about this very thing that we're going to talk about tonight. But our intent is to have a listening and discussion about the possibility of consolidating the voting precincts. And we currently have 9, and we could go down to as far as 3. So with that said, there's a multiple considerations when you think about doing that. Financial considerations of the cost of having 9 precincts. 6 years ago, we had it was the HAVA Act, which the federal government provided precincts with in Sac County, they pretty much took care of the whole bill, is that correct?
They did that first time for every county.
Which allowed us to have computers and disability equipment in all 9 precincts. That costs approximately $220,000, give or take a little bit. One of the concerns and one of the things of discussion or of consideration is that everyone kind of recognizes the plight of the federal government's financial situation, and we really don't expect the next time that this equipment would need to be updated that they would step up and take care of the bill again. I just don't see that happening. So with that said, if we were to continue with 9, Sac County taxpayers would have to ante up and pay the cost of the new equipment. One of the considerations is a lot of times the computer equipment, the life of that equipment is 5 to 8 years maybe. We're in the 6 to 7 year life of it already. Quite often what either the equipment companies or the software companies will do is quit servicing that equipment, and then you're forced to update. So those are things that we want to have folks discuss tonight, and we're here to listen, and I've already taken up my share of the time. I guess I'd like to, you guys, is there anything that I missed?
Well, yeah, historically, after a census, a lot of times is a logical time to look at your precincts. And in the past, the last census, there's 21 precincts, and we went to 9.
1990.
That was then, and we could stay, leave it alone and still have 9 districts, and say, operate the way we have the last 10 years. If the machines break down or they quit servicing the software, then we'd be looking at bigger expense probably than we have in the past.
So is that the case with your equipment? It's not serviceable?
Well, that's always the fear of any kind of computer equipment that we own. The life of our computers, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and we find that an example of close to home for us right here is our servers and software stuff in the basement. They'll go out about 5 years and then say we're not servicing it any longer, and so you will update and buy new, and that's one of the considerations that we fear will happen, in the next few years.
So can you service your stuff yet?
It's okay right now.
It's okay for this upcoming primary.
And we're looking forward. This is the time in 10-year increments that you look to the future for 10.
How many does it take for each voting place? How many machines?
We have one electronic scanner and one handicap touchscreen for each precinct, which is a requirement.
And one spare for a substitute.
That's the minimum. And fortunately, Sac County's precincts are small enough that we can get by on the minimum. But
So if
the,
you consolidated them, can you still get by with just one of each then, you think?
And this would just be for the primary, basically, the primary and general elections. Your school elections and city elections would still be held in a given school district.
So what you're saying is this equipment is not used but twice a year, or
Yeah.
twice
For primary and general.
general?
Every
So
2
what
years.
would be the cost of replacing 9 precincts?
well, the new ones, the scanners that they just sent me the literature on, which is kind of an indication of what's going to happen, but the scanners are $5,500 a piece, and the handicap ADA machine is about $3,200 a piece.
But that's not the software to run it.
No, that's just the people.
That would be the equipment.
Plus there's, on the machines that we have now, we also have a $4,900 a year maintenance contract.
Per machine, or is that for all of them?
That's for all.
So you aren't gonna save anything on that anyway, the maintenance one?
Probably not.
Well, if you would if you didn't have 10 machines.
Yeah, you'd say.
I mean, yeah,
Oh, I thought you said the maintenance was 4,500 no matter what.
it's 4,900 for the 10 that we currently have. So if you cut back on machines, it would make, because, I mean, you'd think that contract would be less. I guess I can't say that for sure, but you would hope that it would be less.
Aren't you worried about people not voting if we don't have them in the place?
We are.
You know, it's hard to get people now, and take it to 3, it's gonna be really bad. It'd be worse.
That's a huge concern, and
You know, Clarence, if Shaler didn't have, if they had to drive it early or Oldeville, that's quite a distance.
Yeah. Well, everybody's gotta drive. I mean, everybody drives now, and we don't like to drive any more than we have to vote on top of it.
More and more people are voting absentee with the system we have in place now. We've seen, I don't know, Joe, if you had a figure, but how many people voted the last, the governor race?
I'm not sure, but it's gone up every year, especially in November. We get a ton of people just because they don't know if it's going to snow that day or not, and they don't want to chance it. And the politicians always send out your absentee ballot request. So, I mean, it's simpler than ever to vote absentee.
But it still takes forethought.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
And some of the cost, aside from the machines or the scanners, it's just the cost of the election, the poll, getting poll workers. And, Jim and Joe and Renee are more, but it's getting a little bit more of a challenge every year in some of the smaller precincts to get people that will serve as poll workers.
And that too, we need 4 people per precinct.
They get paid how much an hour?
Well, it's pretty cheap,
It's
but
a 10-hour minute.
$7.25 an hour, but, or $7.50, but, still, you got 4 people at 9 precincts.
Yeah.
one of the other larger expenses that we have, whether we have 9 precincts or less, is the number of different ballots that we need. With 9 precincts, we need 9 different printings of ballots. If you had less precincts, you wouldn't have as many different ballots. But this is a tough one. It is.
So the magic number is not 3. There is a number between 9 and 3.
That's correct.
We got, that part of the conversation came in when we were looking at our supervisor districts in addition to the maximum number of voters allowed in any precinct is 3,500. And the way the supervisor district populations break down is just
3450.
Yeah, it's just right under that magic number of 35. So as the conversation progressed, that was the question that came up. If we can have as many as 3,500 people in a precinct, why don't we put one precinct in each supervisor district? And then it opened all the questions of location, access, that type of thing.
Have you considered school districts as your precincts? The only thing I've ever heard is the confusion of where to go when they have to
Well,
go to
that's a whole
different places.
different beast, those school district elections.
But if you put them there,
Yeah.
Not a lot.
And then we're by code have to have the ballot by supervisor district.
Right. And
Those,
those
so
school
those,
districts
those
overlap.
wouldn't,
Yeah.
I mean, you could think about sites in a school maybe,
yeah.
but the ballot thing doesn't work out.
That's kind of hard to do in November for
Yeah.
the general.
So in other words, you say you got four, if you go down to three, you're gonna have 2 or 3 machines in each precinct then, to vote. You'll still only have one? And not use the other one?
Well, we won't buy it, and these are...
Yeah, but these are still good, right?
Yeah.
So I
But when it
mean,
comes,
right now, you're
Great
still,
backups,
we're
yeah.
not only talking about not, the companies not maintaining the software or the equipment, we're also talking about the state of Iowa decertifying that equipment.
but you don't know when that's gonna happen.
Oh, heavens.
So why not just keep them the same as you got them until they do it?
That's another option.
You can, the fear that I personally have is that when that time comes, if that comes in between censuses, then it's someone else's choice about whether you have to purchase all new equipment for nine precincts.
I mean, I said, then go down to 3 or 4 or 5.
You can't, can you?
What's that?
You can't drop in between census years.
You can change the number of precincts once in each census, in each 10-year.
But not in between.
Well, no, this is the time to do it,
Yeah.
that's what they're
So
saying.
you can't do it 2 or 3 years from now.
No, we have to certify this by October 15th of this year.
So how many more years do you think you have left on the equipment you have?
No, I mean,
I mean, we're looking at, you said about 5,500 for the scanner, 3,200 for, okay, if my math is correct, that's a little under 80,000 if we would continue with the 9 precincts.
But, you know, we had, Jim, what was that machine that they certified 1 year and decertified the next?
and that's only hardware.
That was the-
That's only hardware.
Auto
I
mark.
understand that.
Okay.
That was
Because
that
you're still
other
gonna have the
hand.
cost of
The auto mark?
printing some ballots and stuff like that.
And the software to run this.
And the software.
It might be, you know,
People man the...
you could say, you
We have to buy
know,
that every election.
Okay, so that's already.
You know, when the federal government was paying the bill, you know, I don't know how much competition there was between the companies that provide this type of equipment. I don't know how many companies,
Actually, I think there's 3 different brands, if you will, that are certified in the state of Iowa.
3 different companies.
So have you looked at all 3 different brands that are certified by the state of Iowa? Or are you just looking at the one that you're most comfortable with and have a relationship?
Well, we looked at 2 of them when we bought the equipment that we have now.
And what year was that, you said? 2000 and...
5, I think.
Is the software cost divided amongst the 9 machines, or is that, you have to have a copyright for each one?
No, that's divided by precinct for each machine.
Because it's a different setup.
So where were you thinking of putting the precinct voting places? I've never seen it in your minutes, or it was not in a public hearing where you were going to put it. So where were you putting if you had 3?
that has not been decided.
But in your discussions at board meetings, where was this?
Probably, in my mind, the present location, three largest or five largest towns.
Well, right now you put it in Lakeview, Sac City, and Odebo. That was in the paper. That's what you discussed.
Yeah,
Just because those were the largest concentration of people, that is not determined now. In District 2, that's the east side, that's my district. We have Nemaha as a precinct, part of Lytton as a precinct, and Sac City as a precinct. And in District 2, it would make the most sense to have folks to travel to Sac City. But you can have them wherever you would choose to have them. You don't, that's not set in stone that you have to do that. And you have, like in the west part, in Jack's district, you have that, they travel the full length of the county. In District 2, and the northeast side, which I represent, we don't travel the full length of it, nor do they in Neenah.
in District 3, if Auburn were to travel to Wall Lake or Lakeview, that would be 13, 15 miles to Auburn. And some like to live on the county, it'd be 14, 16 miles of travel for rural Auburn to get to Wall Lake or Lakeview.
How far is it from Odebo to Lakeview? 7 miles?
10 miles.
So I mean, that's not very far when Taylor would have to go
Oh, well, yeah,
12 miles, if you look at it that way.
But in our district, or District 1, I think Early would really be the most centrally located. So Shaler and Odebo would both come to Early.
if you make an exception for District 1 to have two voting precincts, say Shaler or, one of the three, because of the way they're spread out, then you say, well, they're making accommodations. Are you going to try to do anything else in other districts? But, or was your question, like the physical location would change?
No, I just wondered, the way we got information in Shaler, those of us who don't subscribe, sorry for the Sac Sun, is I was being nosy, went onto the internet to read what you guys have been up to, and I see so I called Betty Bailey and said, have you heard anything? Have they sent a news release out? Because this was a few weeks after, and she said she had just read it too. So we need you guys to start communicating more in news releases, not just public announcements where you have to pay for it. Some news releases so that we know in York that this is all going on.
Well, I send a copy of the minutes to the Shaler Herald every week.
Yeah, well, she said she had just gotten it, so I guess that's one of the things that, we're hearing that we're going to have to go vote in Odebo, and we're thinking, did you guys even think about going earlier, dividing up the precinct? And what was the reasons? You say you've got to buy new equipment. Give us reasons, give us facts on how much things are going to cost, what the cost of poll workers are, the printing, and I'm sure Jim has that because he knew that some loudmouth could ask.
The cost of the gubernatorial election in 2010, equipment aside, this is just the cost of the election, was $20,150. The cost of the presidential election in 2008 was $16,551.
How much of that was absentee mailing things out?
That's not included in here.
Okay, that's not included.
That's not included. And I think it costs us $4 a ballot to mail out absentee.
Well, yeah, it's 88 cents because we pay both ways. So, the envelopes and ballots and, we think that's a good idea.
Pardon me?
Excuse me, $4 a ballot for absentee, and we think that's a great idea? We want to throw these miles of impediment between our voting precincts and our residents and say, well, you can vote absentee and it still costs you $4 a ballot to do that?
Well, unless you walk a mile or a block, start your car or drive to the poll, $4.
I haven't heard numbers, I'm sorry, I have not heard numbers that justify putting all the people in the county on the road for a minimum 20-mile round trip. I don't hear those numbers here. And I'm speaking for the City Council of Auburn. This would be a huge impediment to the residents of Auburn, who mostly, majority-wise, would work south of the county, outside the county. If you went to Carroll, even in Shaler, if you went to Storm Lake to work and then you had to drive clear to early to go vote and then go back home and you got kids to get, you put a huge impediment in there to vote. And I'm sorry, but absentee ballot and all the hoops you have to jump to be able to do that is not the answer.
I'll speak to that. I work in Sac City. My residence is such that I vote in Nemaha. Because of that, that's why I vote absentee,
Yeah.
so I don't have to make that drive back.
I vote absentee because I live in Lytton and I'm at work before the polls open.
And we're seeing a lot of folks choose the absentee route whether they travel or not. I mean,
But you just said that comes with the cost as well. That's not free either.
I'm not denying
No,
that.
it's not.
I'm saying that a lot of folks, we have seen that number probably double since I've been a supervisor, the number of folks using absentee. And a lot of folks are using it because it's available, they're in town, they'll...
And it's gotten a lot easier to vote absentee. But what you're suggesting or forcing people to do is to do that, or to not vote. We don't have to show an ID, we don't have to do anything but register to vote to be able to walk in to our local precinct and vote. But when you put your precinct 15 miles away, a 30-mile round trip, an hour minimum round trip to go vote, you've put a huge roadblock in front of people who want to go vote. And they're going to have to make a decision about whether they do that. And the day is not there where 2 weeks before we know that we can't get there on the polling day. We may think we can get there on the polling day. And suddenly, you know what? The kids are sick or this happened or that happened and I can't get there and I have to drive all this way. I don't think your numbers justify that, ladies and gentlemen.
Anyone else like to speak? That's why we're having this. And we want people to speak up. And
So when are you going to decide?
it has to be turned into the state, by the Secretary of State by October 15th.
I'd like to hear your three opinions. Be public, state what you think right now. What do you want to do? You going to go 3? You going to go 9? 6?
I don't my own feeling, if we're gonna change, I'd say go to 3. Instead of just picking off the 3 lowest towns or the 4 lowest towns. If we're not, I guess if we don't want to do 3, then I'd drop back to 5. So Shaler, Wall Lake, Lakeview, Sac, and Overbold.
Why have so many in Lakeview when they're only 3 miles apart?
Just going by size of, the size of the towns.
If we're going to cut back, my opinion is, why don't we just, they're talking about trying to save some money. They talk about these absentee ballots being so good. Why do you sprinkle people out? Just close the whole county and put it all in Sac. Why does one town outside the community get a ballot place and the other towns don't? If you're going to close some towns, close them all. That's my opinion.
Well, the state of Iowa won't allow us to do that at this point in time. There is some talk about other states such as Washington and Oregon, they have an all-mail ballot system. And before before each election, the Commissioner of Elections Office mails a ballot to every registered voter in that county. That's not permissible in the state of Iowa at this time.
Well, I just wonder why some towns are favored and some towns aren't. You know, and what I heard, it isn't by mileage, you know, it should be by mileage. You know, people work in Starlight, you know, we don't have much business in here. Everybody leaves the county, you know. There's nothing really, no manufacturing in the county.
I guess the one thing I'd like people to speak up and say, are you okay with us down the line taxing to update this equipment? I mean, I guess that's my question. Do you feel that it's something that we ought to do to maintain 9 precincts? And my personal opinion is that it's going to be in the $220,000 range the next time we update. That's a guess, but that's from past history. Maybe it'll get cheaper, maybe the machines will get cheaper, I really don't know, but we do know what it cost last time. And I'm asking, do you folks want us to tax the $220,000? What I am thinking it will be the next round, are you willing to?
For something that's going to be used twice every other year.
But if you use it twice a year for 5 years, right, 10 times, that comes to $22,000 per year, correct? Or,
Yeah, if you put it.
yeah, $22,000 a year. Do you think you can find anywhere in your budget you could cut $22,000? Are you guys so tight on your budget?
The cost of the election, like the one here for the governor, we had 3,983 people voted, and it cost us $20,150. And you average that out, that's $5.06 a vote.
And that's not including the absentees, which you said were
Right.
over 4.
That's not including the cost of the equipment either.
Right, that's just the cost.
That's just.
But the cost is gonna go up if you have less people vote.
Pardon?
The cost is gonna go up.
Your per vote cost is going up.
Yeah, because you aren't gonna get as many people to drive the vote.
Right.
No, I didn't hear anybody speak up and answer the question I asked.
Well, I'll speak to that.
Okay.
I will speak to that. If you're 220,000 over 10 years is 22,000 a year, divide that by roughly 10,000 people, what's that, $2 a person a year?
That's only for the equipment update, that doesn't include.
Yeah, but we gotta do all that other stuff anyway. And nobody knows when the state's gonna decertify, or if. Nobody knows if you buy new equipment, whether you can continue your software package or whether you have to have new. You don't know any of that. As far as taxes go, we're talking $2 a year per person.
Our taxes are raised on property descriptions, not on people. So that, I mean, you got a good point, but
I understand that.
there's a lot of people, if we got 10,000 people, there's quite a few that don't pay any tax. I'm just being a devil's advocate, not to tear you. But, yeah, I'm with Rick. You know, this is my 9th year. You know, I don't enjoy it. You know, we spend a lot of time trying to hold the cost down, and it's much easier to say, you know, let the next generation worry about it. We went from 21 to 9, and people got used to 21 districts, 21 precincts down to 9. You know, maybe this is much more dramatic than this, but, you know, I think it's our duty to try and streamline, you know, people streamline government. You know, people are saying, you know, we should try and, you know, we're sharing an engineer with Calhoun County to save money. You know, Laura,
We were doing that with Ida
yeah.
in the 90s, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The devil's just like the federal government. They can't, we could save 22,000. We could take so much out of rural roads. We could take some out of mental health. We could take bits and pieces. Yeah, it's doable.
It's according to what your
You're
prior.
just switching the cost from the county to local people. Because we gotta drive extra, 50 cents a mile. We're paying for it either way.
It's,
And when you're streamlining small towns, do remember they're being streamlined at the post office, at the schools, now at the election, and those are a lot of your voters. And so hopefully the absentee thing is very simple and very understandable because
Or we got kids driving 30 miles one way and 30 miles back for 180 days a year. We're just
I'm not,
asking.
I am worried about those kids tremendously,
Yeah.
but I worry about our 90-year-old people more.
Yeah.
But those people can vote absentee, you know?
That's what I said,
Yeah.
as long as it's very understandable and stuff,
Yeah.
because there was some confusion.
But they're the
There
ones that
always
vote
is.
too.
Yeah, and they're the ones who vote.
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing, I'm just saying, think clear out there.
and the downside of the West Coast thing of sending all these in the mail, think how many just hit the wastebasket. And they've got 2 sets of postage that just gets flushed because
Or think of the spouse that votes twice.
But
We see that
they
here.
expect it to be coming, correct? Is that the only way they do this?
Yes,
That's what
it
you
is.
said?
Yes, it is.
So that might be a little different. They might be better at it. I don't know.
But you see what I'm saying?
Sure.
You send it and then you put the postage coming back, and a lot of that just trash
Yeah.
cans.
Are you gonna have another decision? If you make your decision like October 1st, are you gonna have another hearing on it, or is that gonna be final? Then?
There probably won't be another hearing, it'll be part of the regular board.
It'll be, I would assume, be part of the regular board meeting, which we've had a citizen input time for folks they're welcome to come, they're welcome to come anytime, but we specifically talked about doing it at the meetings for this purpose.
So when are you gonna make a decision by? I know by October 15th you have to have it done, but when are you guys gonna make the decision?
You know, I envision we'll talk about it the next board meeting, not necessarily make a decision.
I'd say by around October 1st, that we need to have it done so that it's sent off.
When is your next board meeting?
Every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday.
Well, you know, as far as personal contacts, and, you know, maybe hasn't been publicized enough, a lot of people aren't aware of this decision to be made or could be made. But, you know, quite honestly, most people said, if we're going to streamline and downsize the number of precincts, they're not that uncomfortable.
Sounds like a idea they are.
Maybe after this gets out, more, you know, I'll get more input, you know, but a lot of the rural people, they don't seem to be real concerned about it. A lot of the, you know.
Or they don't care.
Well, the majority of the county budget, you know, the majority of the county budget, local dollars generated, the majority of the money that runs the county government comes from rural taxes on farm property.
They might not know about it either, though, like you say.
And the one other thing, the rural folks have been traveling for some time. My whole voting life, I've driven somewhere to vote, so that, we're used to it, I guess. A lot of the city folks aren't, because there's always been a precinct right in town, and so that's a huge difference when you consider making the change of what we're discussing. But the rural folks, for a long, long time, have driven somewhere to go vote.
Prior to 1990, there was a vote center in every
Township, but since 90, it's been a distance.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about, you know, age discrimination, but the average age of the poll workers, you know, they're old, I bet it's close to 70.
Yeah, but 7 1/4, you are gonna get too many young people.
Well, part of
They got
Well,
jobs.
that's the problem.
one small part of this discussion, Clarence, is for some of the smallest towns, it's getting harder and harder for the auditor's office to get people to work the polls. You know, there just aren't as many older people, you know, young people are all working, some of them like, you know, they're working in Storm Lake, or working in Carroll, and you can't get out work to work the polls. So, I mean, that is a real problem. It's a problem that the auditor's office has to do.
And the equipment, the facilities become more sophisticated, I mean, I'm not real computer savvy, and I know there's a lot of people my age and older that are less savvy than I am. And that's the biggest problem, is getting people comfortable enough to sit there for 14 hours a day and take care of that equipment and process the voting.
What's the process for that, getting people to work at the polls?
Well,
Do you advertise it, or do you?
It used to be that for the general and the primary elections, it was the central committees that submitted a list of their people to work, and then we were required to have Ds and Rs on
Right.
all election committees. Quite honestly, the last time we had, in 2008, I believe, we put an ad in the paper looking for help, because we just weren't getting, one of the central committees submitted their list, and two of them were passed away. You know, it just, before they were asked to work.
Works in Chicago, I don't know what else.
Yeah.
My name's not Daley, it's Daley.
If you're dividing that by a population, instead of going from 9 to 3, and your equipment's going to last approximately up to 10 years possibly, and you've got 10 years between when you can change this, why can't you go from 9 to 6 and go by distance and say Shaler, Early, Odebo, Sac, Lakeview, Auburn?
What about District 2? If you have Nemaha and Lytton.
Just because we're little doesn't mean
No,
we shouldn't
that's
get a
true.
precinct.
No, okay.
No.
But that's what they said.
How do you know the problem?
Yeah, that's what they said, just because we're little, we shouldn't get a precinct.
Yeah, you know.
But I'm talking about
What proximity?
going to 3, I wouldn't care that, because I don't mind coming.
You know, a lot of towns
What's proximity?
have lost part of their school, and they
Well,
don't have a
that's why I'm
school
thinking,
anymore. This is just
You know,
another,
District 1 would be perfect.
What's that? I missed that.
well, you know, from an emotional standpoint, you know, a lot of towns have lost their school. They don't have a school in their town anymore, and one might lose a post office, and this is just another taking.
Yeah, it's
And
very
it's an
difficult.
important, it's, I was president of the school board when we closed the Auburn building, and here I am, you know, how many years later, trying to take another, this isn't a fun.
That's why you were elected.
But it's all for the same reason.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I
all,
mean, there's change. and I
Look, the
don't
way
know.
of the world, it's going.
You don't have to.
Well, if I could, I've been very critical of the three of you up there. Sac County is a very well-run county. You guys are doing, I think, a phenomenal job of doing the best you can with the resources. I would ask you to consider, though, the personal cost to this versus the governmental cost to this. I think while we're all trying to, downsize or do better, do more with our money, there are certain times, and I work in government too, there are certain times where the personal cost of it just does not justify the inconvenience caused by government. And it's maybe not exactly what I'm trying to say, but give this more consideration if you could, because I don't see you haven't justified anything to me as a voter that says that this is a really great idea versus the personal pain that it's going to cause to all the residents of our communities, all the residents of our area. But just give it a lot of thought. And from Auburn, yeah, they took the school out, we've survived.
But what happened though, when that happened, is our employment is not in town. They all have to drive somewhere else, and most of them go the other direction. So this is a huge inconvenience or impediment to even voting at all. So, and you guys are the elected guys, and if you live in the city where the voting district is, you're going to hope to get reelected. You just make it harder for the small guys. And please just give that real consideration if you would.
I want to say something. This has been, in my 10 or 11 years, there's usually as you mull things over and think them over, and it usually comes relatively clear where I think I should be going. I've had a couple of issues in 11 years, and this is one of them, that's not obvious as to what's right. And so don't think that first off, it hasn't been decided, and number two...
Well, what we're hearing is you guys have all kind of made up your mind what has to happen.
Well,
okay?
We're thinking,
I'm asking you to keep considering it.
And I appreciate what you're saying, but we're thinking that we should contract because of things coming down the road. I think that's something that we would agree on. We don't know how to do it, and this has not been something that becomes very clear to us what's right. I guess that's what I want to say. And so don't think that this is an easy one and that we have made up our mind, because we have not. And it's just a very difficult one.
In the redistricting, when I lost Clinton Township, that's right outside of Odebo, those people that only live a couple miles out of Odebo are going to have to go to Lakeview and vote. Regardless. So we just lengthened their drive, where they could drive just a few miles into town in Odebo to vote. Now,
Do you have to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Do you have to do that?
that's a new supervisor district.
That's crazy.
But that's still closer than Nemaha or Shaler or Auburn going to Lakeview or Sac City or Odebo.
Rural Shaler and early and Auburn and rural Auburn
And
would
Nemaha.
make the biggest sacrifice.
Yeah. So.
Well, and you've got Coon Valley almost, coming up to Sac City to vote. That's a hike too.
It would have been much easier if there was an obvious way to go from, say, 9 to 6, that you had locations that you could have contracted a little bit, but not have to go, say, from 9 to 3. But that's not obvious either.
And there's not a lot of comparables. It's not easy to, other counties, other rural counties are looking at different, ideas. But we can't see what Calhoun County and Pocahontas, everybody's considering it. But there's no clear pattern being set.
Am I right to assume that all voting places have to be handicap accessible? Are you having a problem in some of these smaller towns even finding one? I mean, does Nemaha have a...
Yeah.
All of ours are handicapped.
Yeah, they've had to be.
Okay. So that's not a consideration for that.
It is getting to a point, though, we've lost a couple and had to switch to a fire station or such because, the one in Early went private or whatever, and we couldn't go there anymore and had to go back to a fire station. That's not real good, because it's congested, and if there's a fire, it just doesn't work out real well.
Back in the day, I voted in somebody's garage.
Yeah. With a
bunch of cats,
There were a few that you had to clean the cats out before you can vote.
So that by going to 3, you don't think you'll have that many more people at a polling place at a time, that it would put pressure on either the building or the equipment or...
It would make sense that it would. I mean,
There would be some increase in the people there at one time, sure.
Yeah, Lori, I think that's a good point, because, you know, historically, you haven't, in Sac County, you haven't had to wait in long lines to vote. Like, if you have kids or relatives that live in Des Moines or Denver, my daughter, when she lived in Denver, they waited in line an hour and a half. And you see, you know, people in Sac County, if they gotta wait 15 minutes for their steak, that's one thing, but if they gotta wait an hour in line to vote, they're not gonna be happy about it. Just the same way when they're at motor vehicle. You know, the
Yeah.
majority of people, when they wanna get their license plate, they want it right now. They don't like waiting.
I would say that it's probably as a board, it's your responsibility to provide equal opportunity for everyone in the county to vote. That's what I would think your place is, you know. So I'm not sure how you do that and save money too, but you know.
Well, there's certainly other options besides 3. I mean, if anybody's thinking of something besides 9 or 3.
How much more would it cost to pass if you said for polling place, or how did you buy that?
we're, right now, in the numbers of the last election, without any equipment consideration, was a little over $20,000. And a big part of our fear is that we're going to have to update equipment. And we had talked about that, I think, before you arrived. The last time the federal government provided Sac County about $220,000 to update. It was an Help American Voters Act. And so to get everybody on the same page, they threw a big pile of money to buy this equipment. And part of the reason we're having this discussion is that we think there's going to be a time in between now and the next census that we're going to have to update that, which would then come back to Sac County taxpayers.
But you don't know what that amount would be.
We're the only numbers that we have to go by are what it cost last time, and I know that's not. It's an idea.
It's the best you got.
Yeah. So
You're just thinking it's gonna cost that, but maybe it might be good for 10 years more too yet.
Unless they decertify it.
And our experience is, I mentioned that we, with our system here at the courthouse for our computer system, they're servicing this for about 5 years, and then they discontinue the service either on the machine or on the softwares, and they'll update the software so that it won't run in the machine, and then we're stuck updating. And so that's part of what we're concerned about, is that they'll do that very same thing with this voting equipment. And we're now into the life of that equipment about 6 years, and our history downstairs has been 5 or 6 for the life of the equipment and the software. So, can we sit here and say that we know when that's going to? We certainly cannot.
The school elections and the municipal elections would continue to be on paper ballot. So those elections would be the status quo.
But does the county pay for the school elections, or do you get reimbursed?
Same with city.
Same with city, so that's not something you're targeting there?
No, that's not part of any of the number
I just want people to make sure they do.
discussions that we have. What we're talking about, primary in general, 2 times every 2 years.
What is percentage of voters from the actual count of eligible voters that we have in the county?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
He was asking how many actually voted compared to eligible. It's about 50%.
50 is extremely good turnout. 50% is an extremely good turnout.
30%?
50%.
Well, like a, population of 10,500, I think 1,800 people voted in the
3,800 is what we normally got in a general, in a good turnout. Is that about right?
So, yeah, we've got a very aged population.
And that's, I mean, I think maybe statewide and countrywide, 30-some% is about what's showing up to vote, whether it be absentee ballot or going to the side, which is pretty sad. That's a pretty terrible thing.
I just think it's gonna go down if you don't have it. Like I say, the older people won't vote. That's my thinking. And that's, you don't want to take privilege away from them.
We've got a woman who, she is probably 88 years old and she has never missed an election. She is always my first absentee ballot application for every election. And I just think that it's getting easier and easier to get those applications, whether it be online or whether the politicians are mailing them to you. And I think the older people will take advantage of it.
But they won't get them online. Yeah, they eventually will, but.
From my position in the office, I'm not saying that absentee ballots are the end-all fix-all, but the last presidential election that we had over 1,100 absentee ballots of the how many that voted. So you're looking at a large percentage of the voters that voted, period, that vote absentee. That's not to say that I think that that's the answer, but more and more people are using them all the time.
And it's getting, when they mail you the applications in the mail, that's when it got a lot easier. People really took advantage of it once they started getting those in the mail.
That argument's really not, absentee ballots is not the argument here. It's where you can put the polls. Because you're going to have polls, maybe if you had 90% absentee, still going to have some polls.
A minimum of
Right.
3 and a maximum of 9. Regardless.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's one way to frame it.
But if more people are voting absentee anyway, that just raises your cost for the number that are going to use the equipment. Or if you've got to provide equipment for fewer and fewer people that are using it too.
We'd appreciate if you have anything you want to write or come back into one of our meetings and with some good ideas. We're really open to, we've talked about it, but we don't know what we're going to do.
How about rotating?
Oh.
Rotating into different towns. I mean, and Jack, you would have Shaler, Early, and Odebo. One year have it one year Lakeview, Auburn, make sure that, and Wall Lake, make sure everybody can, I know it's confusing, but it's been confusing being in that little Eden place where we're told to go over here and then told to go over here.
But we put a
And we
notice
pay
of election in with every election, and people still go to the wrong places.
That's
I can imagine what it'd be like if you rotated.
That's an option on the
It's
table.
a shot,
Yeah, I mean,
it's a thing.
let's think outside the box, that way, I mean, I might not be around in 6 years, but, 2 people, you go to Odebo 1 year.
As an elections supervisor, what do you think of that? I mean, it's a different idea.
He won't have any hair.
That's the water's under the bridge.
Neither will his deputies.
I don't know why it wouldn't work, but at the same time, I don't know how you could get it any more confusing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
We can have all the city people come to Nemaha to vote.
Oh, boy.
We can just open it up and vote.
Yeah, no, but they can come there. We do have a place to vote, and we're quite capable of doing that.
Does anyone have any other input about, first off, we've talked about 9 and we've talked about 3. Does anyone have any other suggestions or ideas about something considered in between those two?
My opinion would be either 5 or 6, something like that.
So my opinion is we come down here, get our tags for our vehicles, we come down here for quotes, we come down for our meetings. And we're gonna close them, just save the money and put it all in one location in the sack. And we'll just have to work the absentee ballots, that's my, why spend some on some communities if you can't spend it on all? That's my opinion.
Anyone else want to speak to that?
I don't like it, but that's what I think is fair. Mine is one community 7 miles from another community 7 miles away, get one.
Well, you say you can't do that, though.
No.
Well, but are you talking about just District 2, or are you talking about countywide?
I'm talking about countywide, but you can't
We cannot do that.
You can't do that.
Yeah, 3 would be the minimum that we can.
You have to have a voting place in each district.
Right.
That's correct.
We have to have a voting place for every 3,500 people. And as it works out, there's less than 3,500 people in each supervisor district.
Correct. So you have to have one.
Well, if you focused on distance of travel, like Morris said, 5 to 6, you could go into Lakeview, Auburn, Shaler, Sac, and Oldendale. That would be 5.
But then Nemaha.
Nemaha, Lytton, and Auburn would be out. So those would be the ones you'd have to.
Well, or, if you, to a certain degree, you just, you pick on or you identify the smallest ones because the fewest people were affected by the change.
Well, I was just trying to figure out which ones you had left out.
So if you left out, if you took the precinct away from Nemaha, Lytton, Early, and Wall Lake, that'd be a reduction of 4. And you'd have 5 polling places, 1 in Auburn, 1 in Shaler, and 1 in Oldendale, Lakeview, and Sac.
But then that doesn't make consistent district-wide. That would be 2-2-1.
Yeah, that was my thought process. I wasn't.
But District 2 would have the least amount of travel by the least folks, which is
Wall Lake is just 4 miles from Lakeview. It's not from a geographic standpoint. I don't want to.
You go 2, 2, and 2 then.
Where do you put the second one in District 2?
That's your game.
If you were going to get down to 5, that would make the most logical sense.
Right.
That you would do 2-2-1. But then you're not consistent among districts. But thinking in the big picture, that probably is.
I mean, in all honesty, basically, I'm letting that one doesn't fit anyway because it's right on the county line. There's nobody coming from that side. It's almost as close, other than once you pass 2 miles from Lytton to come to Sac, as it is even if you go to the northeast corner. So that really, if you're going to cut it, Lytton to me is
the people that live in Lytton on the Calhoun County side drive to Rockford.
Go to Rockford. They're traveling that far already.
So, and don't bother me if Lytton gets left out as far as that district. I mean,
The bad thing about taking away from Shaler, you get up in that part of the county that, in some ways, they don't feel like they're part of the county to begin with. Some of them come to the fair, and that's about the only affiliation they have. They have to come here to pay their tax and get their plates, but, the people of Shaler feel like they're, way over there, and they're neglected and left out, so.
Like Auburn, huh?
I'm a half mile.
But, getting back to the numbers, Shaler's about twice as big as Auburn, so, if you're gonna, if you're going to go to 4, I'd say Shaler and Holy Bolt, Lakeview, and Sac. But if you're gonna go to 5, you get into geographic, maybe we ought to look at, keep one open in Auburn, and I don't know.
I just think you need more than 3. That's my opinion.
Do we need 9?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
One other thing that I want to make very plain, and I speak for the 3 of us, we in no fashion want to discourage people from participating or voting. That bothers us badly too.
But like he says, you're hired to represent every town and township. So, 9 might not be a bad idea either. It's a tough one. But you are to represent the whole county.
Absolutely. Anyone else like an opportunity?
As you go back to your communities, I encourage you to discuss this with relatives and friends. And we're having a board meeting next Tuesday. If some of them could come or get input to any of us, it would be appreciated.
We had initially, it ended up on Tuesday night, which accidentally happened on some of the town council meetings. They didn't have them on Monday because of the holiday, and now it landed on Tuesday. Well, the town council meetings got moved to Tuesday because of the holiday, so we're certainly open to discussion with anyone, and I'll make that clear.
Bill, is your garage between Shaler and Emaha?
We've had no Nemaha for the last 10 years, so we might be back in Shaler.
Free charge.
This is a paint company.
Well, we have nothing but them.
Well, I would really hope that you guys will get more communications out about discussion, and that you will take into consideration the impact this will have on your local citizens, whether they vote absentee or whether. And I know, having been in your seat, these are not easy decisions, but you're here to represent the people, and you need to be looking out for them, and whether they're having to drive 30 miles, that may be a small price to pay for us taxpayers who will be footing the bill. Because I know there are other places that you have some discretionary spending.
Probably smaller communities around too are more or less bedroom communities that have a higher percentage of elderly than, say, Sac City or Lakeview would, or, we've got a higher percentage of elderly, we just do.
When we got some of that other than citizens.
That's
That are not eligible to vote.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for coming.
And please let Sheriff Carroll know when you're going to be actually having a vote on this, not just thinking we all get the Sac Sun or we all read the internet in minutes, okay? Keep the communications open so that you can inform citizens.
I don't know.
I'll